I learned about my parents' deaths from a voicemail I replayed twice. The words sounded careful, like they were packed in bubble wrap. Both of them. An accident on a winter highway I knew too well. I stood in my kitchen, holding the phone, staring at nothing. The kettle screamed behind me until the sound became unbearable. I turned it off and waited for something inside me to react. Nothing did. Grief arrived later, slow and heavy, like a delayed storm. What came first was responsibility. It always did. I booked a flight the same morning, canceled meetings without explanations, packed a suitcase with clothes I barely remembered choosing. My parents' house sat in a small town most people passed through. One main road, a diner that closed too early, a post office that still smelled like paper and dust. I had left that place at 18 and rarely returned. My younger sister stayed longer. She said she liked the quiet. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. Not since the argument that started over nothing and ended with silence. We were good at that. Letting things rot instead of fixing them. The house looked smaller when I arrived. Paint peeling near the windows. The porch light flickering like it was tired. Inside, everything smelled like lemon cleaner and old furniture. Our neighbor had been there already. She hugged me too tightly and spoke too softly. I made some lists, she said, pressing papers into my hands. Groceries, utilities, people to call. I nodded and thanked her, because that was expected. Because that was who I was. My sister arrived 3 hours later. I heard her car before I saw her. Same engine rattle. Same impatience with brakes. She stood in the doorway, holding a backpack, eyes scanning me quickly. We hugged without commitment. No warmth. No resistance. You look tired, she said. So do you, I answered. That was our reunion. We sat at the kitchen table that night. The same table where homework and arguments once lived. A stack of envelopes sat between us. Bills, bank statements, legal notices. Neither of us mentioned our parents. Not yet. The lawyer called the next morning. His voice was efficient, practiced, distant. There would be paperwork, an inventory, decisions. The word inheritance landed badly between us, like it had weight. My sister leaned back in her chair and crossed her arms. She always did that when she felt cornered. I don't want this to get ugly, she said. I almost laughed. It already was. The house held memories in inconvenient places. The hallway where my father measured our heights every year. The spare room my mother kept untouched, just in case. At night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt amplified. The house creaked like it was breathing. I thought about the last time I saw my parents together. My mother's hand on my father's arm. A small gesture I never questioned. My sister slept late. I cleaned, sorted papers, made calls. It felt natural to take control. It always had. By the third day, tension moved in quietly. It settled between us during meals. In unfinished sentences, in looks held too long. She accused me of deciding things without asking. I accused her of disappearing when things got hard. Old roles resurfaced easily. Too easily. The lawyer scheduled a meeting for the following week. We would go together. He insisted. That night, I found a box in the attic. Old letters. Receipts. A folded document I didn't recognize. I put it back without opening it. Some truths felt dangerous already. Downstairs, my sister played music softly. A song from our childhood. One our mother loved. I stood on the stairs, listening, feeling something tighten. This wasn't just about a house. Or money. It never was. The lawyer's office smelled like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. Everything there looked designed to discourage emotion. He greeted us with the same neutral smile. Not warm. Not cold. Professional. We sat side by side, leaving careful space between our chairs. A legal distance. He spoke about procedures and timelines. Probate. Property valuation. Joint decisions. My sister tapped her foot the entire time. I folded my hands and listened. When the house came up, the room shifted. It always did. It can be sold, the lawyer said, or transferred to one party with compensation. My sister glanced at me. Not directly. Through reflection in the window. I want to keep it, she said quickly. The words surprised me, though they shouldn't have. She stayed. I left. I can't afford to buy you out, she added. Silence followed. The kind that forces someone to speak next. We'll figure something out, I said. It sounded generous. It wasn't. On the drive back, we didn't talk. The town passed by slowly. Closed shops. Faded signs. You always do that, she said suddenly. Do what? Decide. Offer solutions nobody asked for. I kept my eyes on the road. Someone has to, I replied. That's what you think, she said. At home, the argument waited for us patiently, like it had been rehearsing. She accused me of leaving them alone, of building a life that didn't include them. I reminded her she had choices. That staying was her decision. She laughed at that. A sharp sound. You left because you could, she said. I stayed because someone had to. That sentence lodged itself inside me. Later that night, I opened the attic box again. Curiosity outweighed caution. Inside were letters addressed to my sister. Some unopened, some folded back neatly. They were from our father, written during the last 2 years. Short notes, updates, apologies that didn't quite say the word. I sat on the floor reading them slowly. Each one chipped away at something solid inside me. He wrote about her patience, her help, her quiet sacrifices. He wrote about me too, briefly, carefully. She's strong, one letter said. She doesn't need much. I folded the paper and felt something sour rise. Strength had always been assumed, never asked about. The neighbor knocked the next morning. She brought soup and unsolicited memories. She spoke about my sister's late-night drives to the hospital, about missed dinners, canceled plans. She was always here, the neighbor said. My sister stood behind her, arms crossed, watching me listen. After the door closed, she waited. I could feel it. "You didn't know," she said. "No," I admitted. "You didn't ask either." That hurt more than accusation. That afternoon, we went through my parents' bedroom. Closets, drawers, forgotten corners. My sister found my mother's journal. I found insurance papers. We worked quietly, efficiently, avoiding eye contact. Then she found something else. A bank statement. An unfamiliar account. Her expression changed. Subtle. Alert. "What's this?" she asked. I leaned closer. A series of withdrawals. Large ones. The lawyer hadn't mentioned it. My stomach tightened. That night, I couldn't sleep again. The house felt smaller, like it was listening. I replayed old moments. Me leaving for college. My sister standing in the doorway. I remembered telling myself she would be fine. That she always was. The next morning, she confronted me in the kitchen. The statement between us. "I think they were hiding something," she said. "From who?" I asked. "From you," she said. "And maybe from me." The thought settled uneasily. Inheritance wasn't just about assets. It was about secrets. And we were only beginning to touch them. The morning sun cut through the curtains sharply, illuminating dust motes in the air. The house felt smaller now, each room weighed with memory. I wandered into my parents' study. Books lined the walls, their spines faded. I ran my fingers over them, feeling a quiet ache. My sister was upstairs. Her steps echoed faintly on the wooden floor. I wondered if she was thinking the same thing. We hadn't spoken since the discovery of the account. The silence between us was heavier than any words could be. I opened the drawers slowly. Inside were letters addressed to both of us. Some from distant relatives. Some from friends long forgotten. A few written by my mother herself. I unfolded one carefully. Her handwriting was neat, precise, deliberate. Sometimes, life hides the lessons behind numbers, it read. I read it twice. The words pressed against me. I could feel their weight, though they were subtle. Later that afternoon, my sister called me from the front porch. "I want to talk," she said. I followed her outside. The yard smelled faintly of rain from the previous evening. She stood near the old oak, hands in pockets. The wind played with her hair, brushing her face. "I know you didn't mean to ignore me," she said quietly. I hesitated. "Then why does it feel like you did?" Her eyes glistened faintly. I swallowed. "I didn't see it," I admitted. "I thought I was protecting you." She laughed bitterly. "Protection doesn't feel like this," she said. "It feels like absence." The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. We moved through the house carefully, avoiding confrontation yet never fully ignoring the tension. Small words were exchanged. Meals shared. But the air was heavy with unspoken accusations. The lawyer scheduled another meeting to finalize some details. I knew we'd face the account then. I dreaded it, but I also knew it couldn't be avoided. At the office, the atmosphere was clinical, neutral, every word measured. My sister went first. She demanded transparency. She wanted every detail, every document. I agreed, though part of me bristled. I wasn't hiding anything intentionally. The discovery felt like betrayal, yet it wasn't aimed at me personally. The lawyer sifted through papers, noting balances and transactions. "Everything seems in order," he said. "But you two need to decide on distribution." My sister's eyes found mine. "Do you think we'll fight?" she asked. I looked away. "I don't know," I admitted. That evening, I returned home exhausted. The walls felt closer. Memories pressed in. Arguments, long past, seemed to echo faintly. I wandered into the kitchen. A cup of tea, barely sipped, grew cold beside me. The room smelled faintly of lemon and old wood. I realized the real inheritance wasn't money or property. It was understanding, the unspoken history between us, the accumulated small resentments, the choices made silently over decades. Later that night, my sister came into the kitchen. "I don't hate you," she said. It sounded sincere, and yet it wasn't entirely reassuring. We sat in silence together. The hum of the refrigerator filled the pauses. The weight of what had passed and what was yet to come hung between us. I thought about my parents, how they would have wanted us to navigate this. Not perfectly, just carefully. As the night deepened, I felt a thin thread of connection. Fragile, tentative, but it existed. And for the first time in weeks, I felt that maybe we could manage the inheritance. Not as a prize, but as a test of patience and understanding. The old house groaned around us. Its floors, walls, and memories were witnesses. And we were learning, slowly, how to exist within it again. The day of the formal meeting arrived. Sunlight poured through the tall windows of the lawyer's office. My sister and I sat across from each other, separated by the polished table. The documents lay between us like silent judges. Figures, statements, and valuations. The air smelled faintly of ink and polished wood. "I don't want this to become a war," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. She looked at me with guarded eyes. "I don't either," she replied. "But we need to be honest about what matters." The lawyer began the process systematically. Each asset discussed, each bank account explained. I noticed my sister's jaw tense. Her hands clenched briefly in her lap. I felt a pang of frustration. This wasn't about fairness anymore. It was about control. About proving we had been right, wrong, or overlooked. When it was over, we stepped outside into the late afternoon light. The town felt indifferent. Neighbors walked past with casual greetings. Children played with bicycles and skateboards. My sister and I walked slowly to the car. Neither spoke at first. The weight of what had just occurred pressed down. "Do you regret it?" she asked finally. I paused. Regret what? The fight, the anger. I shook my head slowly. I regret how long it took us to speak honestly. Her gaze softened. A thin crack of understanding appeared. Driving back, we passed our old childhood park. The swings hung still, grass yellowed by the summer sun. We both remembered our mother's voice calling us in from the yard. At home, the house felt different. Not empty, but charged, filled with history we could no longer ignore. Later that evening, the neighbor came by. She brought a small plate of cookies. "Thought you girls could use something sweet," she said, lightly smiling. We thanked her. The gesture felt like a reminder of gentleness beyond conflict. That night, I sat in my childhood bedroom. Walls covered with old posters, faded photographs, and stacks of books. I reflected on years of accumulation grudges, misunderstandings, silences. I understood then that the inheritance was far more complicated than property. It was the space between us, the choices unspoken, the emotional distance carefully maintained. I found an old diary, written in my teenage handwriting. I read words that echoed my current self. I wish my sister would see me, not just my mistakes. I realized she must have felt the same. Years of similar thoughts, silently preserved. The night ended with quiet. Not a solution, not a reconciliation, but acknowledgement, a fragile pause in a long-standing tension. I understood that resolution might never come completely. The best I could hope for was measured patience, for conversations to be honest, for silences to carry intention instead of resentment. And in that acceptance, I felt a strange relief. The past could not be undone. The future remained uncertain, but we could navigate it deliberately. I looked out the window at the street lamps glowing. Shadows of trees stretched across the yard. I thought of my sister upstairs, a presence in the house I had missed more than I knew. That night, I whispered softly into the dark. "We are still sisters. Somehow, that is enough." The following weeks moved like slow currents. Our interactions at the house became ritualized. Meals were shared quietly. We avoided explosive conversations, but spoke enough to exist together. The younger sister began sorting through old photo albums. I watched from a distance, resisting the urge to intervene. Some pictures captured moments I had long forgotten. Birthday parties, summer vacations, and awkward school photos. Faces smiling, unguarded, unaware of the future we would inherit. She found a letter from our mother, tucked behind a frame. It was short. "Remember to care for each other," it read. No signature, no flourish. Just those words, simple and deliberate. We sat together in the living room, reading it aloud. The weight of years pressed against us. Old resentment stirred quietly, but softened by memory. The lawyer called a final meeting to close the estate. We drove together, a fragile alignment. Inside, formalities were completed. Signatures made, documents filed. The inheritance was divided, but something unspoken remained unresolved. Driving home, silence stretched between us. Not awkward exactly, just cautious. We stopped by the old corner store from childhood, bought ice cream like we used to. It felt awkwardly nostalgic, and a small laugh escaped her lips. That evening, she spoke more freely than before. "I still don't understand some choices Mom and Dad made," she said. I nodded. "Neither do I admitted. But we live with them now, not them with us." Days turned into nights. I noticed small shifts in our interactions. She would ask for my opinion, lightly. I would respond carefully. No lecture, just guidance when requested. The house slowly regained a rhythm. Rooms once silent now carried cautious sounds. A cup clinking against a saucer, the shuffle of pages, a door opening without hesitation. Sometimes we sat together in the kitchen, both quiet, watching the sun fall over the backyard, not talking, not needing to. Presence itself became a form of connection. I began to understand the subtlety of family bonds. They could stretch, bend, fray, but not always break entirely. Time did not erase anger or misunderstanding, but it offered space for perspective. One afternoon, the neighbor stopped by again. We spoke more openly this time. She had witnessed our childhood, our parents' lives, and the quiet escalation of our feud. Her presence was a gentle reminder that life extended beyond our conflicts. At night, I would sit in the living room, alone, reflecting. The house was not perfect. Our relationship was not fixed, but small moments of recognition, of effort, began to replace long-standing resentment. I realized I could not control reconciliation. It would come or not on its own terms. What I could do was show up, offer patience, maintain care even when acknowledgement was minimal. As months passed, small gestures accumulated. A shared cup of coffee, a conversation about a book, a quiet agreement to watch the sunset from the porch. I recognized that presence, rather than victory, was the inheritance worth protecting. A fragile hope persisted. Not certainty, not closure, but the knowledge that we still had each other. That night, as I closed the blinds and the lights dimmed, I whispered softly, "We endure. Not perfectly, not completely, but together enough." The weight of the house felt lighter. Not empty, not healed entirely, but lived in. And for now, that was sufficient.